Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Yana Johnson, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Petty Officer Jodie Matters. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. Please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which he remained true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard their record, which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths of floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Corporal Frank Murphy. Frank Xavier Murphy was born on the 5th of July 1896 to John and Margaret Murphy of Brisbane, Queensland. Frank had 3 brothers and a sister and had a second sister who died in infancy. His mother died when he was young. His father was the assistant manager of telegraphs in Brisbane and went on to work as postmaster in Charters Towers. Frank was still a student when war broke out in 1914. He was the first of the Murphy brothers to enlist for service in the Australian Imperial Force in 1915. He left Australia for active service overseas in May 1915, followed by Kevin and Inigo, and a month later, and Harold in May 1916. Private Frank Murphy spent a few weeks on Gallipoli with the 26th Battalion before the evacuation in December 1915. In early 1916, the AIF went through a period of reorganisation in Egypt, and as part of this process, Murphy was transferred to the 7th Brigade Machine Guns. He joined his brother Inigo in the 2nd Machine Gun Battalion, which was sent to France to fight on the Western Front in March 1916. On the 5th of August 1916, Frank Murphy was shot in the shoulder near the French village Possières. He was evacuated to hospital in England, spending a number of weeks in Beaufort War Hospital near Bristol. It is likely that during this time he met Gladys Woodruff. 6 months later, he married her in Bristol. Murphy continued to serve in England on light duties until April 1917. During this period of time, he received regular promotions, reaching the rank of corporal in early 1918. All of the Murphy brothers were seriously wounded on the Western Front, most of them more than once. In Australia, it was reported that they hitherto shown great recuperative powers. It will be a fine thing if this grand quartet of Murphy brothers goes safely through to the end. Frank Murphy returned to the front in May 1917. The following September, he was again wounded in the shoulder and evacuated to England. He again spent a considerable amount of time recovering before returning to the front. On the 10th of June 1918, the 2nd Machine Gun Battalion supported an operation to improve the Australian position near the French village of Sailly-Loet. The operation was a success, but as the new front line was being consolidated by the infantry, the machine guns suffered casualties, including Corporal Frank Murphy. His body was lost in later fighting, and today he is commemorated on the memorial to the missing at Villers-Bretonneux. He was 21 years old. His widow, Gladys, was just 19. Inigo, Harold and Kevin Murphy all survived the war and returned to Queensland. Their brother's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among more than 60,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Corporal Frank Xavier Murphy, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they'll be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. Thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you a very good evening.